In the previous session, we discussed about integration Cloud Connect. The Workday delivered configurable integrations. There are two types of configurable integrations delivered by Workday. One is packaged integration and another one is core connectors. Packaged integrations are specific to vendor and they are fully designed and developed and tested by Workday. And without any efforts to build the integration, you can send the data to a specific vendor. And core connectors or connectors are they're not end-to-end integrations. They are not specific to the vendors. They are just templates, built-in integration templates. When compared to the package integration, these templates, core connector templates, are generic one. They are not specific to the vendor. And whenever you want to send the data to a vendor to which we don't have the package integrations, we use core connectors. Okay, and as they are at the same time as they are not end to end, you have to build the integration based on this template. You have to select the services that you need, you have to select the attributes, you have to configure the maps, delivery service, etc, etc. So anyway, we will discuss more about what sort of configuration we do uh, as part of our integration. We decided to cover the core connectors first, followed by packaged integrations. To support our discussion, we have taken this requirement document. We are assuming we work for XYZ organization and we have to send the data to ABC. And this is the data that we want to send. And we also assume there is no package integration to send the data to ABC. So we decided to build the core connector integration. And this integration sends the worker data to the vendor. Worker's first name, last name, gender, supervisory organization, hire date and termination date. This data belongs to worker. So we have to build an integration, core connector integration, which send the worker data to a vendor, or in this case ABC. We have built an integration. So let me search for the existing integration. In previous session we just selected the template. So let me open that integration and see this one, CCW core connector worker. This is the integration that we have created, and we have multiple steps in developing the core connector integration. The first one is selecting the integration template. Based on the data that you want to send, you have to select the template. In our case, we have to send the worker data, so I have selected core connector worker template. This template contains web services, a lot of web services which help you to fetch the worker information. And it also contains the services which help you to deliver this file to a vendor, and another service which help you to mention the document retention policy, like how many days the file should be available, and a few services which help you to do the mappings. We will discuss about each service, but this template contains set of web services. So the second step in developing the core connector integration is select the services that you need. After selecting the template contains a set of web services. So you have to select the which web services you need for your integration. You have to select that. That is the second step. Integration services. So I'm going to this screen where you can select the web services. For time being, in our previous session we created this integration. So after selecting the template, we landed in a screen where it looks like this. See this one. After selecting the template, we were in this screen where It has 24. This core connector worker template has 24 web services, and you have to select the web services that you need. And here you can see this. Here you can see the web service name, initial service to invoke. So this, see, thing is, this is a web service name, clear. Here you can find the names for different web services. Next option is initial service to invoke. This template has 24 services. So which service to be invoked? Which service to be invoked when we launch the integration? That you mentioned here. It was already selected by Workday, and this core connector worker ESB service. This is the service which will be invoked by Workday when you launch this integration. So it is marked as initial service to invoke, and you cannot change this behavior. So it was disabled. And optional. Is this service optional to build this integration? No. This is mandatory service. This is a mandatory service. So, sorry. Yeah, this is a mandatory service. That's why you cannot select the optional here. It was disabled. As I mentioned earlier, out of these 24 services, few services are optional. Can you see? These are optional services. If you need this service in your integration, you will select that. Else you will leave it. Okay, but there are few mandatory services. Can you see here? These are the mandatory services to build the core connector worker integration, and that's why they have disabled here. You cannot select optional checkbox here. And next one is enable. Is this service used by this integration? Whatever the services you need in this integration, you will enable those. If you see here, these services, all these services are mandatory services. That's why optional is disabled and enabled is checked. That means these services are enabled or selected in this integration. Okay, take this one, date launch parameters. So we will discuss what is this service later, but take this service. So here it says optional. This service is an optional to build the core connector integration. This optional, but if you need this service in your integration, select this checkbox. Like this, these services also. Can you read this? Worker personal data selection field. So if you need this service in your integration, select. This is an optional, that's why it was not enabled. So if you need this one, select this. So like this, what you will do is, whatever the services you need, you will enable that here. The next question, how do you know which services to select? How do we know which services to select? So to get that, first you should understand, or you should know the purpose of this web service. You should know the purpose of these web services. So let's discuss one by one. First, let me start with this. Let me start with this because you can easily understand this for what is that functionality of these web services. We will discuss the other services later. First, let me start with this. Can you read this? Worker profile photo, worker personal data section field, worker status data, position data, contract data, leave of absence, compensation. See, identification, related person. So by seeing this, I can understand, okay, this web service will return the worker's profile information. This service returns worker personal data, worker status data, workers contract data, worker related personal data, sorry, worker related person data. That means dependence details, qualifications, identification details. So what you do is, first you have the requirement document and you know which data to send. Okay, and what you do is, if the requirement contains any means as per the requirement, if we have to send any personal data, you will enable this. If you have to send the status data to the vendor, then you will select this one. Position data, you will select this one. Contract data, you will select this. Dependence data, you will select this one. So based on the requirement document, you will select this service. If requirement is to send the personal data, means if the requirement as per the requirement, if you have to send the personal data, you will select this one. Along with the personal data, you have to send the real dependent details, then you will select this service and this service. And along with this, you should also send the worker compensation data, then you will select this service too. Okay, but you may ask me, hey, based on this requirement, let me open this one. Here this is the data that we have to send. Okay, by seeing this, how do I know? How do you know this is personal data? This is the status data. This is the what is that, compensation data. How do I know? And the worker personal data means it contains first name, last name, gender, and a lot of other date of birth, marital status. Here this service, it just says worker personal data, which means which contains a lot of details, but out of that I just have to send first name, last name, and gender. So how can I select only these fields? I don't want to send all the personal details, I just want to send these three details. So how can I send that? That you will see. Okay, I will explain how to select that one. Okay, first, how we can find this web service sends the, or let me explain in this way. So this is my requirement document. So first I have to identify which web service return the or sends the first name, or how do I know which web service returns the hire date? How do I know which web service sends or return the termination details? These details are documented in community. In community there is a page which explains the fields. The fields are the data that will be written by this web service. That page contains which worker details will be written or fetched by this personal data section fields web service. Okay, which dependent details will be written by this related personal data section fields web service. Okay, I will share that document, that web page later. Okay, but currently we don't have the access, at least you don't have the access to community. So how do you know during the practice, how do you know which web service will return that information? What you can do is, as you don't know all these things, first why don't you select all the web services, select all the web services which returns the person data or worker data. See, select all the services, and then in the next step, first here we are selecting all the services, fine. In the next step, what we will do is, which fields should be, or which fields or which personal data should be included in the output, which compensation details should be included in the output. In the next step we will decide that, and at that time you will realize which web service has the required information and which web service you don't need for your integration. You will get those details, and based on that you will come back to the screen and you will uh, disable or unselect the services that you don't need for this integration. So first we are selecting all the web services because we don't know which web service will return the required information. So let me select all and I'm clicking on OK. Yes, I have selected all the web services here because I don't know which data will be returned by that web service. Now, as third step, first step is over selecting the integration template. Second, integration services. We have selected the services that we need. Now, as a third step, you have to set the integration attributes or overrides. This is the third step. That means as part of this step, what we do is which fields you want to include in the output, which data or which fields of the worker you want to include in the output. You will mention that. And how can you do that? Go to related actions, integration system, configure integration field attributes. Integration system, configure integration field attributes. This is the screen where you select which fields should be included in the output. Okay, here. Worker profile photo. This is the web service and it will return the file name and image. Worker file name and image. And what you do is you will go through the description. You will go through the description of the field and you will decide whether you need this field or not. When I see my requirement, we don't have to send the worker photo information. Can you see? Just first name, last name, this. We don't have to send the worker photo details. So I'm not going to select any here. And now I realize this web service is not required for our integration. So we are going to remove this one. Now, personal data section. This personal data section contains 74 fields. That means it will return the it can return these field details, personal details of the worker. But which personal details we need here? First name, last name, gender, these things. By seeing this first name, last name, gender, we understand. Everybody knows these are the personal details of the worker. Okay, and so what you will do is you'll go here and search for the first name. Can you see this? First name in local script, first name in local script 2. I will select first name. Or if you don't know which field to select, just select all the three fields and read the description if you have any. If you have any, read that description. So what is the difference between this first name and first name in local script? Workday maintains the for a few countries like China or Japan. Okay, for such countries, Workday maintain their worker data in their local script also. Along with the English, it will also maintain in their local language. Okay, if you want to send that information, send that local name or name which is written in their local script to the vendor, select this field. If not, select the first name. Whatever the fields you want to include in the output, select that here, include in the output, yes. And next one is the required field. So we use this for the validation. If you select this field and if the value is null, if any worker first name is null or empty, then integration will throw a warning or error. And maximum length. So for the truncation, Workday can store the first name up to 100 characters, but the vendor accept only 30 characters. So that you define here. But in 99% we don't do any validations or truncations at this level. We do all such customizations in XSLT. We don't do anything here. So let me select this one, first name. Next, I need last name. I'm searching, is there any field with last name? Can you see this? We have many. Here also I'm going to select last name filter, and I'm going to select this one, first name, last name, and I know gender. Let me select this one, and the next one is gender. Gender. Let me select this one. After selecting these three, first name, last name, and gender, I'm searching for supervisory organization or hire date or termination date. So let me search for the hire date here. No fields. Hire date is not the worker's personal data, and hire date of the worker is not written by the personal data section field web service. And same termination date, supervisory organization also. Okay, so what we do is whatever the fields you need, you will select that one. The personal data section web service can return 74 fields of the worker data, but out of those we are including only 3 personal details of the worker in the output. We have selected those. Okay, so now what you will do is you will go to the next web service, and what else is pending? We already in the personal data section web service we have selected first name, last name, and gender. What else is pending? Supervisory organization, hire date, and termination date. So you will go to this screen, you will search here, do we have organization? Do we have any organization? No. Hire date. Can you see hire date? We have termination date. We have, and supervisory organization. Can you see this? Supervisory organization, no. Out of 44 fields, we just need 2 fields from this service. We are selecting this. Now I will go to the position data. What else is pending? Supervisory organization. See, we have some organization. So now I'm going to search, is there any supervisory organization? Can you see? You have supervisor, supervisor operation, supervisor ID, supervisor name, but we don't have supervisory organization. So then what we do is we think, okay, so supervisory organization details are not written by this web service. We'll go here, we will search for this. No matches. So no data. So like this, what you will do is you will go by one service by service, and you will see is the field required is the required field written by this web service. If yes, select that field, include that in the output. Okay, this is when you don't have access to the community, and when you don't know which web service can return the data that you need. Follow this one, select all the services, then go through one by one, and check if this service can return the field which you need. If yes, include that in the output, else go to the next screen, next service, do the same. And once you identify all the web services that you need in your integration, you will go back to the previous screen, and you will uncheck or disable the other web services. And now we have selected all the fields except supervisory organization. Okay, but guys, with my experience, okay, I'm saying you can find that details in position data. Okay, instead of supervisory organization, search for organization data. Here organization data, organization. See what Workday has done is, okay, before that let me ask this one: how many organizations we have in Workday? We have supervisory organization, company, cost center, location. So all these region hierarchy, location hierarchy, all these are organizations in Workday. And what Workday has done is, instead of giving a individual field for each organization, they have given a common field. They have given a common field, organization here. They have given organization. And what it says is, hey, just select if you want to include any of the organization details in the output. Select just this one. Select this field, and exactly which organization details you want to include in the output, that you will configure in the another area. We have, like, currently we are in integration field attributes, which fields you want to include, right? So we have another screen where you can configure the integration attributes, and you will mention that which organization you want to include in the output, that you will mention in the integration attributes screen. Can you see this? This field is mapped using, sorry, this field is mapped using the integration map called organization, and its type is selected. Can you see this? The type of the organization. The type is selected using the integration attribute called organization type. It is saying it has some mapping. Okay, and read from here. Guys, you will understand these descriptions when you practice thoroughly, when you go to the description several times, multiple times, when you're working in the real-time project, then you will understand these descriptions easily. Okay, but now read the highlighted area. It says organization type. Okay, which organization, exactly which organization you want to include in the output, that you will select using the integration attribute called organization type. In that screen, integration attributes screen, you will go to the attribute with the name organization type, and there you will mention which organization, is it supervisory organization or company or cost center details you want to include in the output. As of now, let me select this. Now I'm done. I have selected all the fields that I need, and I have identified the required web services are available, sorry, required fields are available in the personal data section, this service, worker status data, and position data, and I don't need other web services. So what I will do is I will go to this second screen and I will remove the other services. Okay, let me spend some more time here. Here we have selected the organization, and we discussed the type of the organization we will select or mention in the integration attributes screen. Fine. Now let me go to the status data, hire date and termination date. When you go through the requirement document, hire date, we don't have any additional comment or specifications. But coming to the termination date, we need the termination date in this format. And here you don't have an option to mention the format, in which format you need this information. And this is a workday delivered field. But when you, but here we need the the same value termination date in another format. Okay, how can we get that? How can we get the termination date in different format? Using calculated field. So the next question, how can I use the calculated field, or how can I include the value of a calculated field in the output? I don't need this field now because I don't need the workday delivered termination date. I need the termination date in my required format. So I'm not going to include this in the output. Just hide it. Next, supervisory organization. Anyway, we are going to mention at that integration attribute screen. What else is left? First name, last name. But which first name I want to include? Legal first name. Which last name? Legal last name. So where can I mention that information? So go to the personal data here. First name and last name. Where can I mention that? Again in the integration attributes. So there you can mention which per first name or which last name you want to include. You want to include preferred first name, legal first name, or both. You will mention those details in the integration attributes section. Next, gender. Here, gender information. Male or female. Workday stores either male or female, but the vendor accepts only M or F. Either M or F. Where can I mention that? Where can I mention that? Can you read this description? This field is mapped using the integration map called gender. Okay, what I understand from this is this field is mapped. That means if you need any mapping, guys, how you can understand is if you need any mapping for this field, okay, that can be done using a integration map called gender. Okay, you will understand more in our next screen. Okay, so here first we are selecting the fields that we want to include in the output, and if these fields needs any additional details or additional configuration, that you will do it in the integration attributes screen. If these fields requires any mapping, you will do it in the integration maps screen. Now just remember that, and let me click on OK. Now click on done. Now our next step is disable or unselect the services which you don't need. To go back to that screen, go to the integration system, related actions, integration system, configure integration services. Select this. Configure integration services. Select this and go to this screen. We don't need worker profile photo. Deselect. We need personal data, status, position, contract, leave of absence, compensation. Guys, when you practice, what you do is, okay, select this service, related personal data, and see which fields are available in this web service, and try to include that data in the output file. During the practice, select all the services, select one or two fields from that service, try to fetch all the information. When I select this service, in the integration field attributes screen, if possible, go through the description of those fields. It will help you to build the integrations faster in future, instead of trying to search for which field is available and in which web service that is available. So I'm just selecting these three services and I'm clicking on OK. The next step is I have to set few integration attributes, and I have to set the map, and I have to include the calculated field. Okay, let me start with the integration attributes. If you want to change the integration attribute, related actions, integration system, configure integration attributes. Configure integration attributes. Earlier we have used this configure integration field attributes. It is okay in this screen. If you select configure integration field attributes, in that screen you will select which fields you want to include in the output. In this screen, configure integration attribute, you will set the integration attributes. So here you can see a lot of attributes. Output file name. What you understand from this? You can use this attribute to mention the output file name, output.csv or something, whatever you want to give. It will help you to give the or mention the name to the output file. If you want to attach any tags to the output file, here we can see this version, output, format. So there are a lot of integration attributes. Okay, there are a lot of integration attributes. Whenever you have free time, just go through that. Each attribute have the description and you will understand that. Okay, now we will cover most of the commonly used integration attributes, but whenever you have free time, read all these. Now in our previous screen, we have selected few fields and they need the integration attributes. One is for the first name and last name type, and another one is the organization type. So I'm searching for that. Can you see this? Name type. Read the description. Includes selected name types in the output file. So it says whatever the name types you select here, those name details will be included in the output file. And here you can see the default behavior, default value. See, default value. What is the default value? Legal preferred name types. Here you will see legal preferred name types / legal. That means by default Workday includes the legal first name and legal last name in the output. This is the default behavior. If you want to override that, select this checkbox. If you want to override that, select that checkbox, and here can you see formal, former, legal, other, preferred. I think somebody created two name types here. So let me select this one, preferred. That means I want to include the worker's preferred name in the output. And which preferred name details will be included? First name and last name, which we have selected in this earlier screen. So worker's preferred first name, preferred last name will be included in the output. If you want to include preferred name, first name, last name, and if you want to include along with this, if you want to include what is that, legal. So along with the preferred, I want to include legal first name and legal last name also. So select this. Here we are selecting two, legal and preferred. That means the output will include legal first name, legal last name, and preferred first name and preferred last name. If you want to include other name also, you can select that here. Just assume how difficult it would be to implement the same in the report. Every time, let's say now this month they want to send both legal name and preferred name. Next month they want to send only legal name. In that case, if it is a core connector integration, I can simply come here and I will just remove and click on OK. I'm done. I don't have to change any other configuration. But if it is a report, then again you have to go there and you have to remove those fields and all those. And next one, see, like this, each attribute serves some specific purpose. Can you read this? Country code types. Let's say you want to include the country code details in the output. And country code means you can have ISO 3, ISO 2, Alpha 2 codes. Like for India, if you want to send IND, 3 letters, you will use IND. Or if you want to send only to IN. So how can you send that one? Here you will mention this one. You want to send Alpha 3 code or Alpha 2 code. That you will mention that here. The default behavior is 2. If you want to send 3-digit code, you will override that here. Address type. Let's say you mention, hey, include the address data. Which address? You will select it. By default, it's sent to work address. If you want to include work address and home address in the output, you will select these two. I don't want to override because we are not sending any address data. Can you see this? Include private address. Do you want to include private addresses in the output? Phone type. Which phone details? Work phone or mobile or home phone details you want to include in the output? Do you want include private phone numbers? In Workday, when you add the phone number, what you can do is you can set the visibility. You can set the visibility, visible to public or private. So that you can mention here. If you want to include private phone numbers also, means whose visibility is set to private. If you want to include such phone numbers also, you will select this one and you will override this value. An email type, a lot of information you can find here. And we need this attribute for our integration. Organization type for organization. By default, it will not include any organization details in the output. So which organization details you want to include, you will mention that here. See, all these are organizations in Workday. So I want to include supervisory organization details. Supervisory, I will select this one. If I want to include, along with supervisory organization, if I want to include cost center details, cost center. Now this integration will return both supervisory organization details of the worker and cost center details of the worker. Like this, you will set the attributes. Okay, and once you set, click on OK. What we have done is we have selected the attributes. See here, we have changed the or select the attributes that we need. Okay, and still we are seeing an error. Okay, can you read this error message? Can you read this one? There are integration attributes enabled for this integration system that are marked as required for launch but do not have a value assigned to them. It says there are few integration attributes which are marked as mandatory. Required for launch means mandatory, but value is not assigned to them. So please assign. And can you read? It's also giving how you can assign integration system configure integration attributes to complete the configuration. This is the error message. What it says is, in the integration attributes, here you have few which are required for launch, marked as required for launch. Can you read this one? So currently version is required for launch. Do we have any other attribute? Can you see? We don't have any attribute. So what we have to do is we have to give the value for the attribute which is marked as required for launch. Again, how can we change the integration attribute? Related actions, integration system, configure integration attributes, and give here version required for launch and add this one. And what you do is, whatever the latest one, you will select this one. The value which is latest, you will select that one. Because now we are building the integration, and we always, whenever we build the integration, new integration, we will select the latest version. If you ask me, hey, why we have different versions here, it's like if you take any programming language or web services, they can have multiple versions. So that for just for that versioning the output file, but whenever we build the integrations, we always select the latest one and click on OK. Can you see this one? The error is gone. We have selected the fields and we have set the attributes for that. And what else is pending is maps related to worker data. Mapping is pending, and using or including calculated field is pending. So the requirement document, we need this mapping, male or female. Now go to this, and in the second list, when you are building the integration, that we discussed, the second step is selecting the web services. And there are few web services which are mandatory and by default selected or enabled by the Workday. And if you have a look at those services, you will see few map services. Can you see this? Foundation, jobs, worker. The services, the mapping related service, they support the mapping. Okay, in Workday we have one value, example male or female, but the external system, when you send these details to external system, you don't want to send these values, you want to send some other value, external value. And how do you mention that? How do you do that mapping? Okay, and that mapping is supported by these mapping services. That's why they are marked as mandatory and they are enabled by default. So if you want to do any mapping, or if you need any mapping, go to integration system, configure integration maps. Configure integration maps. So here again, when you build an integration, again, we do a lot of mappings. Okay, and here you can see the 22 items. That means currently this integration supports 22 mappings: name type, title, gender, marital status, region, disability, and citizenship status. Can you see this? Identification. What you will do is, whenever you send the data that is related to this mapping, and if you need any mapping for the data, you will do that here, and you can read the description of that here. Okay, now let me start with this gender. So we know we are sending the gender information, and there is a map uh, that can be used to do the mapping, and this is the description. And if you need any mapping, for the gender information, you will do it here. Plus, click on plus, and here you will select the workday internal value. See, female. This is the workday internal value. If any worker's gender is female, you want to include F in the output. Here you will select the external value. If any worker's gender is male, you want to select M. You will do that here. Like this, how many instances workday fields you have, you can add mapping for all those. We have male or female and not declared. If it is not declared, you want to use not applicable. You want to send this one. And if the worker gender is none of these, then here you can send any default value. If you want to include any default value, if none of these genders are selected, you will do it here. If you see, we have three values in the workday for gender: female, male, or not declared. So what you can do is, instead of declaring these three here, I will do it here. So not applicable is the default value. If any worker mention their gender as male, M will be included in the output. If the worker's gender is female, it will include F. If the worker declared their gender is not declared, if they use this option, or if they don't mention any value, or any value in the workday for gender, then it will send not applicable in the output file. Okay, so this is the default value. Like this, you have the mapping for many fields. See here, let me show you some easy two which can easily under marital status. So when you are let's say as part of the integration, you have to send the marital status details of the worker, and if you need any mapping, you will do that here. See, can you see the marital status are country specific? Let's start with India. So here, a worker who belongs to India can declare the marital status as any one of these: divorced, married, single. Okay, if any worker's marital status is divorced India, you want to send D/IN, divorce/IN. Just assume this is the value which you want to send to the external system, because you don't want to send the workers this workday values to the vendor. You refer this divorce in India as this value in the vendor system instead of sending the details directly. Okay, and if any worker, again same. So let's take Australia. They can mention these as the marital status. So if it is a, don't select married Australia, so I will married AU, like this. If the worker marital status is none of these, or if they don't declare, then you want to send not applicable. You will mention like that. If you don't need any mapping, you will simply ignore. For our integration, means in our integration we are not sending the marital status, so we don't have to do that. If you need, this is the process. Click on OK. So we have done all the configurations required to fetch the worker details, except that including calculated field. And after including calculated field, yes, with all this configuration, integration can fetch the data. Okay, then when you send the data, how can we mention the output file name? And if you want to generate a sequence, like instead of static value, you want to use sequence generator for the file name. So how can you do that? And especially every time we don't send all the worker details, so we send the changes only in the requirement document. After sending the initial load, from the next time onwards, we have to send only changes. So how can you configure that in the integration? How to add the notifications and how to mention document retention policy. So all these we will discuss in our next session. Thank you very much.